partnerships are everything, because we always, working alone and trying to do everything you can marketing wise as a brand is oftentimes can really hurt you.
Hey there, and welcome to a brand new episode of Delivering Marketing Joy. I am your host, Kirby Hassman, and joining me today is a brand new rock star. She's an expert in brand partnerships and live events. I'm sure we'll dig into that. She's in charge of Brandie Weaver Partnerships. Brandie Weaver, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be fun. So I have seen that you talk about the power of producing your own live events rather than necessarily sponsoring someone else's. Can you talk about why that might make sense for brands?
Absolutely. It's one of my favorite questions. I will say, I think every scenario is a little different when we get into this for each brand. But a lot of times, because I've been on both sides, where I've been the sponsorship coordinator, and then I've been on the brand side of things too. A lot of times, you go out and you can spend $60,000, $100,000 on a sponsorship, and they give you a list of marketing assets that may or may not be right for your brand. And then depending on what your strategy is, brands don't always utilize those assets to the best of their ability, just because they have other things going on. As a brand, you never don't have anything going on. So it can kind of get lost, where when you are producing your own event, the brand is more in control. They are able to work with their current clients. They're able to invite their prospects, the people they want to work with, and create the environment that really aligns with the brand, whether that's an outdoor environment, that's, a very lifestyle type environment. So every aspect of that brand, from the time that the attendee walks through, really represents the brand itself. And so I often tell people, work through the same budget when they're on the line about supporting something. We kind of go through the pros and cons of what it looks like. And oftentimes producing their own event, even if in the beginning it could be only 30 to 100 attendees, but if it's 30 to 100 attendees that really align and there are attendees that you are so eager to be able to connect with, versus 10,000 attendees that may or may not suit your brand.
Yeah, much more targeted. That makes sense. So I love that concept, and we do some of our own events, and so you're talking my language here. But what might a live event strategy look like? Like how would I get started, or how would somebody get started?
Well, so we work with brands on, oftentimes when they have a certain budget for sponsorships for the year, that's where we kind of go through and we work with the brand on looking through if they're looking over, I don't know, to be a part of 5 to 8 events a year. We help them look through those sponsorship decks. We kind of know how to utilize those assets. So we work through those assets, and we also set up KPIs for the brand on the goals, the key performance indicators that we are going to gauge on whether this sponsorship is going to be successful for the brand or not. And we work through the entire live event strategy with the brand. So when they do decide to sponsor a brand, they can walk away and feel like they really got ROI, and they're not leaving it all up to the sponsorship coordinator. Because sometimes, even though that coordinator can be the best, it doesn't mean that your brand is going to get everything it needs to get out of it.
Yeah, sure. Of course, they want to do as good a job as they can for you, but they've got other
Right.
responsibilities as well where you're just, you want to be focused on your own brand. I think that makes sense.
Right.
Well, the other thing you talk a lot about is partnerships. So can you talk a little bit about what you mean by partnerships and why you think partnerships are important for a brand?
Absolutely. I think, especially in 2024, partnerships are a necessity for a growing brand. Whether that partnership looks like connecting with a community event, a national event, influencers, creating these partnerships that are true relationships, true partnerships where both sides of the brand and the event, the property, whatever it is, get something out of it. And there's so many, apparel brands and licensing partnerships. There's just so many. Depends on, if we're talking about alcohol or apparel or CPG products, but partnerships are everything, because we always, working alone and trying to do everything you can marketing wise as a brand is oftentimes can really hurt you. When you team up with others in your certain niche that makes sense and align, you're just going to help each other grow. Essentially, you're going to tap into each other's target markets and be able to help each other leverage those.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I always call it shared platforms. I mean,
Right.
essentially, it's what we're doing in a very small scale here, right? Like your
Right.
audience and my audience. And so the idea that brands would do that with other brands, I think it just makes sense. So you mentioned influencer marketing. So let's talk a little bit about influencer marketing. I feel like that's one of those things that can feel nebulous. What does it mean? So what advice do you give a brand that's wanting to get into the influencer marketing space?
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing that I harp when I'm working with brands on influencer marketing is not to set out to spend your budget on a one-time campaign with any influencer. I like to tell them to kind of pick a couple niches. And if you're an apparel company and you want to focus on golf and the Western industry, then I tell them to really focus on those industries and grow. Find the key players, find who are really great at creating content and who align. I mean, I think alignment is number one. So then all of the influencer marketing it needs to be very authentic. And then creating an actual campaign where it lasts six months to a year, because just like normal marketing, it takes a consumer at least 6 times to really connect and remember your brand or your product. So why oftentimes I've seen a lot of people, well, I hired, this massive influencer and they did this one post for me and I didn't really see a lot. I'm like, well, again, your audience wants to know that this connection is authentic. And
Right.
when they see this influencer working with your brand more than once, they know that there's trust. And so maybe they start to trust that partnership and really start paying attention. And, depending on the call to actions that you and the influencer come up with, you'll slowly see traction there and be able to gauge it. And it is something that can be tangible, and you can see the analytics and the results. Where I have had a lot of people come to me and they're like, we did this, we didn't really see anything. I'm like, well, you have to set up that strategy and know how you are going to set up those goals so you can measure the connection. And sometimes you might run a campaign and it might be 6 months and it's not working, and that's okay. But at least you had the measurables to decide if it was working, other than just doing it one time.
Yeah, there's a big difference between a marketing strategy and a post, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
unfortunately, I think sometimes we are wildly impatient. Well, Brandie, this is really great. where can people learn a little bit more about you?
Absolutely. My website is brandieweaver.com. And then our Instagram is Brandie Weaver Partnerships, and those two are the best ways to get a hold of us.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. I love talking influencer marketing with folks because I feel like it is such a quickly evolving space that people are still learning how to, and how to, it's like, oh, I can't just get one person to post one time and that solves all my problems. It
Right.
still has to be a strategy. So that's really cool. I appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Kirby.
Absolutely. We'll do it again sometime. Well, that's going to
Okay.
wrap up this edition of Delivering Marketing Joy. We'll see you next time.